What about you guys? How's it going? I hope you're all keeping well today. I hope everything is good where you are. I hope you've been enjoying my series on the basics of photography. It has been good fun, and I hope there's been plenty of practicing while all this lockdown and quarantine things have been going on. Sure has been a mad time, hasn't it? So now we come to the last part of what builds up our overall exposure, or the exposure triangle it's also known as. We first had aperture, then we had shutter speed. Now we have what's known as our ISO, or ISO depending on where you're from or how you like to pronounce it. So aperture was all about how much light comes in through the lens. It also controlled our depth of field, whether we wanted more of a blur out or less of a blur out, more detail here and there. Shutter speed was all about how long we allowed that light to come into the camera, so whether you wanted a fast shutter speed for freezing movement or a slow shutter speed for the likes of nighttime photography, painting with light. ISO on the other hand is all about how sensitive we make this light onto our sensor. So your sensor is a delicate piece of equipment that's inside your camera, whether it's your digital SLR or even your mobile phone, and this is where all your light gets recorded onto. It's essentially a constant and digital version of when we were on film cameras before. So when we were on these guys, we used to put in what was known as a roll of film. We popped it in, got it all lined up, we took a photograph, your light got exposed onto the film. Whereas nowadays, your light gets exposed onto the sensor. Now, some of the things as well that are a big difference between the sensor and your film was that with film, you know, you were limited on how many shots you could have taken, whereas at least with your sensor, that's why I say it's constant, it's there in your camera all the time, so your light gets recorded onto, then your photograph just goes onto your memory card. So even though there's a lot of differences between working with negative rolls of film compared to a digital sensor, they do share a lot of similarities. Now, of course, we were limited on our photographs that we could have taken on our rolls of film. So when you picked up a roll of film, you would have looked for 24, 36 shots would have probably been the main things that you would have looked out for. But as well, there was another number that we also looked out for with our roll of film, and this also carries over into our digital sensors, and this was our ISO. We also used to call it our film speed as well. So when you were picking up rolls of film, you would have seen ISO 100, even ISO 400 a lot of times. General standards when it came to your packets of film, like a 100 would have probably more suited for the likes of outside during the daytime, whereas you maybe thought, oh, like an ISO 400 or an 800 maybe did a lot more darker conditions, likes of inside, and those sort of things from before carry over now. Our sensor does the exact same thing. It has ISOs of 100, 200, all the way up. Now, the beauty about our sensor now is that these can go even higher compared to what films would have been before. Like on my film camera here, the highest sensitivity I could go to was about 1600. My little camera here, I can go up to into the thousands. So what exactly does it do to my image? Well, first and foremost, we're going to have a little look at how we can set it up on our camera. Now, of course, all cameras are going to be made completely differently, and in this video we're going to jump between a couple of different settings. I'm going to get you to play about with a little bit more with aperture priority, but I'm also going to let you play about with manual as well, because remember, we're bringing everything together, and ISO sort of helps correspond against the other two. So aperture and your shutter were the main two that you would think of. Your ISO essentially is like a little boost to help out these other two. So on your camera you might have a dedicated ISO button on the back, or maybe even on the top of the camera, that you can scroll through all your different numbers. If you don't, you might have, like I know with Nikon cameras, there's like a little I button, and then you would just scroll over to the ISO section on the back of the screen. My Sony camera has a wheel on the back that I can turn, and it changes my ISO. And you can see as we go along, you'll have numbers ranging from about 100 would probably be your lowest number, but on the likes of my Sony, I can bring that up to about 25,600, which is quite high. So as you're scrolling through, going between the different ISOs, you're just saying how more sensitive or how less sensitive you want this light to be. An ISO 100, 200 area is quite a low sensitivity. You do want to maybe keep that quite low depending on, of course, the different situations. You might find that you are in those sort of ISOs a lot of times, like if you're outside, again, going back to film, you're outside, bright sunny day, you want to keep that ISO nice and low. Whereas when you go into more likes of say in here, it's quite dark, or if I go to a concert, you want to bring your ISO up a little bit more to help boost out that signal a little bit more and help make your life a lot more sensitive for helping you out in these darker conditions. But let's have a look at what this looks like when we go and take some photographs, because as great as ISO is when it comes to boosting out your exposure, there is some trade-offs that we're going to keep having a look at, okay? So first of all, I want you to turn your camera back to aperture priority, and I've set up a photograph here with Spyro, the little Funko Pop, and all I want to do here is, so I want to get this really nice depth of field style shot where I have a lot of blur out, but Spyro is remaining nice and in focus. So remember, the one thing that we're talking about here is our aperture. So in aperture priority, I set my aperture to f2.8. Remember, quite wide open, a lot more blur out on the background. And I kept my ISO to ISO auto. Now, not all cameras will come with ISO auto, but most of them will do. This is generally the one thing that will be mostly set up if you're in a priority mode, so that way the camera's doing all the work for you. And in aperture priority, again, set to f2.8, kept the ISO down to auto, and the camera was giving me a shutter speed of 1/80, which was 80th of a second. Now, as I've taken that photograph, the camera then, because it was in ISO auto, it's given me an ISO sensitivity of 800. Now the beauty here is that the camera is giving me a shutter speed that works really well for maybe handheld photography, and it's helped giving me a nice good sensitivity with the likes of these sort of darker conditions. The only thing is, and this is where the trade-offs start to come in with playing about with ISO, is that when you look a little bit closer to the image, you start to see maybe little speckles here and there, maybe a little bit of a reduction in your quality of image. What this is a little something known as noise, or as it would have been on film cameras, grain. So when you go into higher sensitivities, you'll start to see all these speckles start to appear, which can look quite distracting for you, but sometimes it can actually look quite nice depending on what sort of style of shot that you're wanting to get. Whereas let's take this same type of shot again, but let's keep our ISO low. Okay, let's go to the lowest that we can. So that's ISO 100. So I've come out of ISO auto and I've just gone to ISO 100. Still keeping my aperture of f2.8, and as you can see, with an aperture of f2.8 and an ISO 100, the camera has given me a shutter speed at 1/10 of a second. Now the beauty about these photographs that I've been taking is that I've set my camera up on a tripod. If I hadn't set this up on a tripod and I was just doing this handheld, I would not get a steady photograph. Let's sort of bring it all together. So I want you to turn your cameras now to manual, and I'm going to set this photo up for how I would generally set up my camera when I go in and take a photograph at a concert, or just sort of my all-round general standard, because let's keep it to what we've been doing already, okay? As I go into manual, I'm going to turn my shutter speed to 1/125, so 125th of a second. That's my, remember from my shutter speed video, I say that's my general shutter speed for handheld photography, because I still want this depth of field look to go on, and keeping my aperture of f2.8. And I'm gonna come out of ISO auto, and I'm just going to break these down bit by bit and show you what different ISOs will look like for the photographs. So I'm going to start off with ISO 100. So I've got an exposure that I want to go for. I'm going to take this photograph in ISO 100, and as you can see, my shot is dark. So my shot here is looking really underexposed. Yeah, we're getting a little bit of Spyro's horns here, but the shot is pretty dark. So what I'm gonna do is, I could do a lot of different things here. I could maybe brighten my light up, I could move it closer, I could open up the blinds in the living room, I could change my shutter speed if I wanted to, because you see with the aperture priority, 1/10 of a second fixed up the shot. But I don't want that, because say if I was taking this handheld, all I'm gonna do now is gonna change my ISO to 200, and you can see it's still underexposed, but we're getting a little bit more detail here. So Spyro's eyes are starting to come in, the wings are also coming in as well. Let's keep going. Let's go to ISO 400. Now you can see a lot more is starting to come into our photograph with ISO 400. We're starting to see Spyro a good fair bit more. I'm going to go to ISO 800. We're getting a much more nicer shot here. So this is taking us back to when we were in aperture priority. You can see we have a much more balanced type of shot. But I want to go on a little bit further from that. I'm going to go to ISO 1600. Okay, 1600 has brightened my shot up a little bit more. It's probably a tiny bit overexposed, but it's still quite doable. If we look a little bit closer into the shot, you can see as well that the quality is starting to degrade a tiny bit just because of these higher sensitivities. If we go to ISO 3200, now I have something that's a lot more overexposed. So I do now. Of course, in these situations, I can maybe change my shutter speed or dim down my light if I want to, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to keep going crazy, and I'm going to go to ISO 6400 where I have something really sensitive, have something really overexposed here. Now I'm going to keep on going. ISO 12800. Yeah, now we're getting something really overexposed. Now again, I would then need to bring down my shutter speed or control my aperture, and I'm going to go to my highest ISO, which is 25,600, and I'm just basically getting pure white, minus Spyro's eyes. So you can see here how ISO sort of helps keep a balance with your photographs, but you can also see as well that there is also the downside where if you look into your image a lot more closely, you'll get all that noise and all that grain appearing up into your shot. Now again, sometimes it can look quite nice. Like for me as a concert photographer, I'm mostly working in the 1600s, 3200s, because I need those type of sensitivities, and it does make my shots quite grainy, yeah sure, but it looks quite nice with that sort of concert feel. But I don't really want that sort of effect going on when I'm outside doing the likes of landscape photography. That's why I keep my ISO quite low. So let's have a quick recap. This one's nice and easy. Your ISO is all about how sensitive you make the light to the sensor, and if you keep your ISO nice and low, that would be more suited for the likes of daytime bright situations. Whereas the higher the ISO you go, like if you have a high sensitivity, it's good for more darker situations. So I hope you find this video useful, and I hope that you find this series completely useful. I hope it's really helped you again during this lockdown. And again, if you have been practicing away, well, let me know in the comments down below. And of course, again, do let me know some things you maybe want to cover in the future, any sort of lessons, anything you want me to talk about as well. Be very much appreciated. Again, just let me know in the comments down below, and do like, share, press that wee subscribe button so that you can stay up to date with future videos. But I'm very thankful that you stuck around for this series. It has been good fun. I have to say it has been good teaching again. Don't worry, this isn't the end of it. There will of course be more as we go along. There'll probably be some things, but again, if you have anything for me, do just let me know. And of course guys, I will see you again in another video. Take care and enjoy the rest of your day.